Thank you, President McNicholas and trustees. So the purpose of this item is to explore options and recommendations as it pertains to property the district owns or has an option to purchase. Specifically, we want to explore options for generating either one-time or ongoing funding where feasible that may be used to address some of the district's facilities needs. So we have several district consultants here, which was nice for them to be here for the Form 700 presentation. So we have, so I'm going to introduce everybody, and then we'll go through the presentation. So we have from Project Dimensions, George Peterson and Craig Hoffman, right here. And from Atkinson, Andelson District's Legal Counsel, Andreas Chialtas is here, right there. And then from Government Financial Strategies, the district's financial advisor is here, Keith Weaver. And so I will now turn it over to Keith to begin the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. So I'll start tonight with talking about our goals for asset management planning, and then we'll discuss 3 sites. We have a site in Pacifica San Juan, which we have the option to purchase. We have a site in Dana Point, which is our southwest yard, and then we have a site in Laguna Niguel, which is adjacent to Miguel Hills Middle School. And then I'll wrap up with a summary and next steps. So the goals are to look at our sites and talk about what's our best way to use them. For the site in Pacifica San Juan, we don't own it now, so the conversation is more about what's our vision for the site and how do we get there. With the sites that we do own, the conversation is about, is there anything we can do to improve, or is there more that we could be doing? And we'll talk about both the option to maybe build new school facilities, or to have uses on that site that generate revenue that will then fund repairs and upgrades of our existing sites. So the first site is Pacifica San Juan. This is the one with the most options. Will probably take the longest to discuss. You can see here on the right is our district map, and the site that we're talking about is shown here. To get your bearings, on the left here is the 5 freeway. This is the district office. This is Camino Las Romas to the south, and this piece of property is the site that we're talking about. All this vacant dirt here is Pacifica San Juan Community Development.
And that's CFD Melrose 98-1A and B.
So our agreement for buying the site is pursuant to CFD 90-1A. It's about 7.3 acres, and our purchase price is set at $6 million pursuant to the agreement. Yes?
What does it mean as part of mitigation?
Yes, so the developers are required to mitigate school districts when they develop homes as a way for us to deal with the impact of having new students. And so one option, a very common option, is for developers to pay us fees, what's called development impact fees. Another option is that they can form, in agreement with us, they can form what's called a community facilities district. That CFD can then generate funding, which will give us funds to help mitigate the impact of the new students. So it's a way for us to basically receive funds in order to help house the new students that will be generated by the development.
Thank you.
So in this particular agreement with Pacifica San Juan, there was, within the agreement was an option to purchase property for a potential school site, just south, down the hill from the development.
So we didn't get, so the mitigation wasn't funds to the school district, it was an option to purchase?
All funds, it was all funds, and it would be, the option to purchase would be, we would use funds from the Melrose, generated from the Melrose to pay for the property.
So we are receiving funds in addition to this option to buy the site. So we get money, and then we have the option to purchase it with that money that we receive.
I see, okay, thank you.
Or keep the funds and use them for other school sites.
Okay, I see.
Now, if we do want to proceed with this purchase, it has to happen by a certain time frame. That time frame is 9 months of us receiving either bond proceeds plus our pay-as-you-go funding that equal or exceed the purchase price. Now, we're anticipating that we're going to be issuing our next round of CFD bonds either this summer or fall. And At that point, we'll have enough money to actually buy the site. And that will then trigger the 9-month timeframe, and so we're thinking that purchase has to happen probably by spring or summer of next year. Now, if we don't issue bonds or delay the issuance of bonds, the agreement expires on June 30th, 2019. So that's our ultimate drop dead date. Now, we would like to consider preserving flexibility and keeping our options open, and so we would like to talk about potentially rezoning the property to include both school and or residential uses. Now, that can only occur once the developer has completed their own entitlements. It's estimated to happen this quarter and maybe as soon as the end of this month. And at that point, we can start the process.
What do you mean when the developer has completed, vested with their own entitlements? What does that mean?
Yeah, so they're in the process of developing the Pacifica San Juan community. And they don't want us to take any of their potential, any of their zoning potential. And so once they have completed their process, which they have a certain number of units that they can develop according to the city. And so once they've completed their process with the city, then they'll allow us to take on an additional process to potentially add more lots
Okay.
to the Pacifica San Juan community.
What's the current zoning on that site?
The current zoning is school uses and park. School uses and park uses. So we
For
could.
parking, is that what you said?
Park. Yeah, park. Parks and recreation. So what we would be doing here is adding the option to include residential as a use. So that way, if we do, ultimately, if this site does get developed into something other than school, there's an ability for a developer to potentially build residential houses.
So are we certain that it is not zoned for open space in San Juan? Do you know, Jim?
It's not open space, it's not.
Okay, all right. Because that's a special designation in San Juan, that's where they haven't changed the zoning once it's open space. In the city of San Juan, in other places.
It's not open space.
Okay.
And just real quick, and we might be in here, do we have a ballpark of how many students once the whole,
I'll be sure.
is that in here someplace else?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
So, yeah, just a couple pages in. So our options are, we can build a school there. We can assign our rights under the agreement to a developer who pays us for that right. Or we can purchase the site and then sell it, lease it, or do what's called joint occupancy, where we jointly develop and occupy the site.
Do we have a sense of what the value of it is now?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
And I'll be sure
Sorry.
enough to use
Go ahead.
that. In terms of students, so the planned housing units in the Pacific San Juan community is about 416 homes. And you can see here, this district's most recent student generation factors are listed there. It takes about 3 homes to have a child there. And that will generate in total 140 kids K-12. That's not a lot of students, and that's justify enough to actually build a new school. And the funding that we're expecting, so far we have received just under $4 million. We are estimating that we'll receive about $9.8 million more this year as well as next year. And so in total, we're expecting $13.8 million of funds from the CFP. Now that isn't enough money to actually build a school. So one of our biggest challenges with this option is we don't have enough kids and we don't have money. Now, in addition, there's some due diligence areas that would impact us building a school, which I want to quickly share with you. Landslides, soil compaction, and environmental toxins. With respect to landslides, if you see this red line here is the property boundaries, and this yellow area is what's called a keyway, which serves as a buttress for a landslide area. And so if there is future development here, they may not be able to build on that keyway. And if there's a school, we may have a setback. And that would then shrink the usable space that we actually have to have a usable school site.
I have a question on the soils too, because the whole development above that, Meredith Canyon is known to have bad soil and cracks and slides. And so is that the same scenario with this parcel as well? The same
Absolutely.
type of soil?
Same kind of soil. And so we do have soil issues here as well. In particular, in this site, there used to be a creek running across it. The city put some storm drains in, but then removed them and put them beneath the street. But because those storm drains were taken out, left a lot of empty space, which meant the soil's not that compact. And so this was later mitigated with dirt by adding a lot of extra dirt to help compact the soil. But it may mean that there's future problems here. And then the third issue is toxins. Here's our site down here. There were formerly 2 oil wells located here, and then there's a landfill, former landfill off to the northeast. Now, soil has been tested. It has indicated the presence of toxins. They're all within regulatory levels, though, and they're deep in the ground with exposure. But because schools have such high safety requirements, it may be the case that we receive additional requirements from the Department of Toxic Substance Control. So none of these issues mean we can't build a school, but it does mean that a school would either be very time-consuming and potentially more expensive than otherwise. So I think our recommendation, district staff's recommendation, is to house the students from this community at existing school sites. So at the elementary level, that's shared between Ambuel and Palisades. At the middle school, it's Marco Forsto and Short Cliffs, and then at the high school, it's San Juan High School. So if we proceed with that plan, we have some additional options. And one is to assign the rights under the PSA. So we're not actually buying it, we're not selling it, we're not taking title to the property. We're basically selling our right to buy the property to a third party, and then that third party has the right to proceed with buying the property. Now, under this option, we're anticipating highest and best use is single-family attached residential units. That's very consistent with the surrounding land use. And under this road, we have 2 options. One is we simply sell it as it is. Or second, we actually go through that rezoning process that I talked about earlier. Now, the rezoning process would mean that we have to pay some money up front to do that. And that process would include specific plan amendments as well as the CEQA process. We're estimating 2 years. But in the course of this process, we would bring in a developer. We have a selection process for a developer. And that developer would then reimburse us for the costs that we incur. So there wouldn't necessarily be any out-of-pocket costs incurred by us. And the goal of this, of course, is by doing the rezoning, that would raise the value and we'd get more proceeds from this effort. Now, the next option is buying and selling. And there are a lot of legal hoops to jump through under this process, and you may be familiar with some of them. The first is we have to form a community advisory committee called the 7-11 committee, so named because it has to be at least 7 and not more than 11 members. That committee would then undertake a review. They would then give us a recommendation. That recommendation would be public. Should we proceed with selling, we then would have to offer to the city, county, or park authority for the purposes of parks and recreation. We'd have to offer to a public agency or company qualified by the California Housing Finance Agency for low and moderate income housing. We'd have to offer to the California Director of General Services, the regents of the UC system, the trustees of the CSU system, the city and the county. And then we have to offer by notice in the newspaper for 3 weeks. And after we've gone through all of that, if we don't have a deal, we then offer to anybody by way of a bid.
And in going down that route, that would be as it's presently zoned. There's no entitlement process for rezoning involved in this.
Yeah, we could buy it, rezone it, and then go through this process.
Oh, okay. So this could occur after the other event. All right.
The other option is to lease. Now, under the law, we can lease land for up to 99 years. If it's a lease-to-own type situation where the developer basically owns the property at the end, then we have basically the same requirements as if we had sold the property. If there's no option for the developer, or if the developer doesn't own it at the end, if the property continues to stay with us, then we have some but not all of those requirements. Now, under a lease scenario, the anticipated highest and best use is attached residential units, most likely apartments. expecting that we would not get a lot of interest from developers to build apartments. And that has to do with land uses that are surrounding it, where the site's located, and there's other complexities. But we're just thinking, it's an option, but probably not as attractive as an option because it wouldn't be as competitive of a process.
Excuse me, before you go on, I have a question. Under the purchase and sale heading, do you have any reason to believe that, any of these agencies we have to offer to would have any interest in it, or, I know the city of San Juan, for example, they have an open space, commission that's, very interested in purchasing open space. I don't see that this has connectivity necessarily, but, do we know that the city of San Juan or any other organization would have zero interest in it, or?
I don't think we can say that for sure. It's certainly a risk. It's possible.
The city of San Juan has designated the site for low-income housing.
Yeah, it's
Right,
possible.
that's what I was gonna say, when, not this last RENA cycle, but the previous one, it got put on the designated site for affordable housing by the city of San Juan. And so they're gonna be in pretty deep yogurt if they don't, do that.
Raise some problem for them.
Yeah, so they would probably want to make sure that it got sold to an affordable developer.
Yeah. So I know absolutely, that's certainly a risk. It's possible they could also want to see a park there. Without going down this process, we don't know for sure. So we take the risk.
So you don't want to remind everybody you don't own the property yet. Or maybe not at all, maybe never.
So how could San Juan designate it as low-income housing when, first of all, it's not even zoned residential?
It's just a zoning overlay that they have to do for an administrative purpose. It's got no real meaning.
And they can't force us to go down that path?
No.
Okay.
We could have George Peterson also provide some comments on your questions. So what were your questions?
My question was, how can the city of San Juan designate it as low-income housing when, first of all, it isn't zoned for residential, and nor do they own it? Do they have any legal right to force us for that use, to make it that?
Well, as you go through the entitlement process, they can put their teeth into whatever they want. I don't know that it's low-income affordable housing at present. I think that was a thought years ago to do that. And I think the local residents rejected it and didn't want to see that. Now, if it has an affordable component to it, that might be in there, but it'll be negotiated as mitigation for the approval. And the developer, Taylor Morrison, wants to see appropriate level residential compatible to what they're developing. So if you said apartments, they'd say that's not compatible for sale residential, which is in the purchase and sale agreement. And that's the way they worded it. So that they will allow you to do residential, they just want it to be compatible with what Taylor Morrison is currently doing.
So then Taylor Morrison would rather see townhomes or condos as opposed to apartments?
Because it's a compatible product to what they're developing now and have approved.
And the city's pressure could be on the zoning.
The city can, influence the process and you either get the entitlements you want or you don't.
So if we think, we want to go through the rezoning or whatever you call it for residential with the idea to either reassign our option or buy and lease, the city could say, no, we don't want to see residential there and not go on with the zoning.
They always have that option, it's discretionary, but they are gonna look at the stakeholders and the adjacent property owners and take that into consideration and listen to people. And I think, if you add additional units here, it may dilute the CFD tax burden of the adjacent property owners, which they would enjoy. And, there's a lot of benefits to a strategy such as this. And even the soil compaction is compatible with three-story stick residential. The key might be used. We have different options on how to put the land plan together without the key with the key. I think you'll get significant interest in this market for sale residential that's affordable, and we model affordable pricing, and that's gonna end up with a land residual that, you know, is gonna be fairly significant.
Okay, thanks.
So at one point, there was a law that the school district sold a site. We had to make it available, for kind of first right of refusal to a charter school, but I believe that law expired, is that correct?
That's sunsetted June 30th of 2016.
Okay, all right.
And that would not apply to the 0 acre.
Okay.
Yeah, right now you don't have title to the property, so you don't have to.
I'm gonna ask a question, but I may be preempting what you're gonna say next. The question is, back at the acquisition level on this property, if we go down this path, is it possible for the school district to engage a partner like Taylor Morrison or the city of San Juan Capistrano directly in that purchase process?
Well, I think that is the model, is to bring in a partner that will cover entitlement costs and effectively close on the property without the district taking title to the property. I don't know that it would be Taylor Morrison, since you're in escrow with Taylor Morrison, and that might be, pose a problem going through the process. But there's a handful of significant residential builders that would entertain that.
Well, after Taylor Morrison has completed their own work in the remaining development, then they would at least not be putting themselves at any kind of risk working next door.
Yeah, I think the history of it was this site was available to be purchased for $8.5 million. It was negotiated down through the last round to 6. You know, Taylor Morrison bought it from Lehman Brothers and probably looked at it just as a remnant parcel with no value to it. Whether they want it back or not, they can get it back if the district doesn't perform through the purchase and sale agreement. And I think what's happened is they know that there's a use there that could be residential, and that's written into the purchase and sale agreement, so.
Okay. Continue. I'll get to my question.
One thing I had done, the Scripps deal, there was a lot of controversy around what they were going to place there, and this seems, you seem to have thought that process through. This would be compliant with what the community wanted and not something strange and exotic.
I will talk about that Scripps project in just a minute.
But I think you're correct. It is